Well, thanks everybody for coming together today. I know that we don't often get together in one room just with everything that we have going on. So I'm really excited to have this conversation today and assembled the roundtable of our Larson Integration Excellence practice. I know that we've been working together collectively over the last handful of years to really perfect this system. And so, why are we here? The RIA space, M&A activity in the RIA space hit a record year last year, and I don't see it slowing down, nor do any of you guys. And so I'm excited to bring everybody here. We've got leaders across the organization. We have Bing Dempelwolf, our Chief People Officer. We have Alec McDaniel, our Director of IT. We have Paul Larson, the founder of Larson. We have Sam Lawhon, the President of Advisory Services and our Chief Investment Officer. And we have Danielle Gaines, VP of Operations. And I'm Alex Brockman, Director of Corporate Development here at Larson. So I know we've talked about this often. There's a lot of firms that are out there discussing what M&A looks like for them, what the future has in store. And ultimately, what we've all collectively tried to accomplish was understanding what the range of firms are what they're trying to accomplish. And so from the vast majority of our conversations that we've had, it usually falls into one of five things. It's organic growth, AI and technology, it's next generation talent, it's expanded solutions for the economy, and it's succession strategies. And so, what trends, from your all's perspective, what trends seem to be going on in their business or even personally whenever a merger and acquisition becomes a real consideration?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of activity going on with M&A, for sure. As you stated, there is a generational shift that's happening, I think, amongst us with people that are retiring and they're trying to think about, what are they personally going to do? They give advice all day to their clients, and yet I think a lot of times they haven't really considered what are they going to do for their own business. And it's the old adage of, the tailor's shoes are often in the worst repair, and this happens a lot with financial advisors. So it's going to be interesting, I think, in the next couple of years to see what transpires with this shift from smaller practices that fold into larger organizations, and the culture shift that occurs with that. It's pretty significant.
Yeah, I think that as you scale up, and what we've seen largely as you scale up as an advisory firm, you go from the practicing physician, right, in doctor terms, but you go from the practicing advisor, the producer, to now you're a manager, and now you're trying to scale a firm. You're a business owner. You're not just an advisor. And there tends to be a bit of a time period there where it's really difficult to make that transition, right? You're learning how to be a manager. You may not have done that before. You're learning how to run a company. You're learning how to embrace this new technology. And so as we go into this next phase of AI and we see these generational shifts, a lot of questions that people have are, how do I apply this to my business? But also, how do I scale my business? And it goes to the items that you were discussing before, Alex, of there's all these things that I know I should be doing, but I might just not have the scale or the aptitude to get there. And so that becomes a problem that a lot of firms, in that range of going from producer to an actual firm, an actual advisory firm, really are facing in today's market.
So I'm curious, Paul, you started the firm in 2006. And a lot of the leaders inside of the organization are actually from acquisitions that we've successfully completed. So from your perspective, from your seat, why is M&A such a core part of Larson's future?
I think it goes back to our mission statement. We exist really to see people flourishing. That's what we're about. We're empowering them to flourish. And as such, when you think about the financial advisors that are out there, it's really hard to find a practice where you can set up a shop in your practice and work within the construct of a larger organization and still be true to what flourishing looks like individually. It was interesting. When I first started in the business as a financial advisor, it was presented to me the 3 reasons why people stay in this space as a financial advisor. And it was impact, and it was income, and it was independence. And these 3 I's are really major centerpieces to how we have designed and built the company. There are a lot of groups that are rolling up practices and having people come together, but they're forfeiting something in one of those 3 I's. They're either giving up some of their income, maybe they're giving up their independence. A lot of advisors, there's a little trepidation about jumping in with another group because you don't know what you're going to give up, and you're concerned you're going to get stuck being told what to do and how to do it and all these things that you just haven't been accustomed to. And so we're really proud, I think, of the overall organization about how we've been able to maintain these 3 I's for all of our advisors. And you're spot on. Many of the advisors that we have here, out of the hundreds that we've got, came in from other groups. And so I think that's a testament to the fact that we're able to attract these advisors to join us, and we're able to retain them. So I think those are important pieces.
The question that many groups have, and groups that we want to partner with have, is what happens to my staff? And that's one of the most important pieces of this, because you might have grown this great organization, and you have people you've probably worked with for a long time. And there's always this trepidation of what happens next for these folks. And so under the mission statement that we have of empowering all to flourish, that's not just our financial advisors, but also their staff, and being able to give them career opportunities, being able to give them upside is super important to us, because at the end of the day, if you ask any advisor who runs their business and who keeps things on the rails, it's the people that are supporting them, right? And so it's super important for us to make sure that those folks are also included in the conversation when we do this, so that we can make sure that everyone across the organization is truly flourishing.
That's great.
Absolutely, because the people are the most important asset, right? So us being able to transition them smoothly and helping them flourish is a huge part of what Larson offers.
Yeah. That's one of the first questions I get whenever I'm meeting with a business owner who has a staff. Like, what's going to happen to my staff? And pretty much it's like, well, we're buying your book of business. We need someone to service it. We need someone to come in and work alongside us as we grow. So do our needs. And so there's typically a need for the people that they're bringing along with them. And we have done a really good job, I think, of finding the right places, because it is a little bit of a bigger organization. We have smaller mom and pop shops join us. And so when they come into our ecosystem, there usually is a little bit more opportunity for them. And we've seen a lot of people grow, flourish, and get into bigger, badder roles, and just really see them go and do new things. It's been really cool to bring in outside organizations and work with them.
I was having a conversation yesterday with an advisor, and we were sitting at dinner, and we were just talking about our children, and so we each have 20-something-year-olds, and they're interested in finance. And the question that we were debating is it best to bring in, one of your children into the practice? And I think this is a really common issue for advisory teams, because in one hand, you really do want to help, bring your children into the business. But on the other hand, you understand that the role clarity between I'm your father and I'm also your boss is often construed in a way that can cause lots of problems. And so one of the things that we've really seen go well is when a family group that has multiple generations are able to tuck into a bigger organization where there is structure, and there are other groups within that structure who are doing the same thing. I just think there's a lot that you can learn from that. And it gives a safe place for somebody who's selling their practice to come and join a bigger organization, and yet still give upside potential for the next generation, which is really important. You want to be able to carry on that legacy.
And training.
Absolutely.
Having a broad organization where people are doing lots of different things is super helpful from that perspective, where you get to see all of these different practices. Personally, that's one of my favorite things when we're talking with groups, is finding out how they started, what are their niche areas, and they bring something unique to the table. And so it's this synergy, and that's the culture we really strive to foster, is one that is not zero sum. I think oftentimes it can feel like in large organizations you are losing if somebody else is winning, or vice versa. And so people are very hesitant to share their quote unquote trade secrets. But in reality, that is not the case. In reality, it's a 2 + 2 = 6 type scenario. And so when you're able to bring these groups in that have all this specialized knowledge, and oftentimes they don't even think that it's specialized because they've been doing it for 20 years. And so they just assume everybody knows this thing, but you bring that in and it grows the overall organization. And so fostering that culture of sharing knowledge, sharing case studies, doing that type of stuff really grows everybody together. So it's super fun when we're able to do that.
Yeah. I think, mergers and acquisitions, strategic partnerships, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. There's a lot of things that go into it. What does M&A, what does the acquisitions and strategic partnerships allow us to do that we could not do otherwise?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the term M&A, because I think sometimes people interpret that as I get to collect a check and then you're going to do whatever you want to do with the business that I've built over the years. And that's just not how we operate. As an organization, when we have a group that's partnering with us, I like those terms better, because what it means is we're taking something and it's the best of all different organizations, and we're putting them together to find the best in class things that are happening, and we're rolling it out to everybody. And that's not a hostile takeover, or we're coming in and changing the way that you're doing things. Often I know that happens in this industry, but I think it's really short-sighted, because if that's the approach and you're just rolling things together to do a turn and go into private equity or do something else, I think what you do is you sacrifice relationships and you lose out on the really gold nuggets that are inside of every practice. And I think if you're willing to look hard enough, you're able to find some of those things and you get the best in class. And that's what gives you the cutting edge. And so I really like to think of M&A more of, let's find strategic partnerships and people that we're willing to work side by side with on a common mission and a vision of empowering all to flourish, including the new people coming in and the existing, and then the people that we don't even know yet.
Yeah. And I know that, that's, we say strategic partnerships, it's the way that it's labeled on our website when they come through that front door of exploring whether or not Larson is going to be a great place for them and their clients and their families. I know that we've had to learn a lot along the way.
I think what Paul said was really important,
Yeah.
though, is not an M&A because it's like the takeover, the hostile
Sure.
takeover. That's not what we are. We want to welcome them into our family as well and help with that transition to be smooth, because that's sometimes the hardest feeling for a person when they didn't have a choice and they were sold off, and so this way we can help them. And that transition is really important, making them understand that we are here, but also what Paul said is bring their ideas, because their ideas, we can adapt them, or they, may be better than ours, and we're going to listen to them. We don't want to shut them off just because we're Larson and, they joined us.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of how do you approach conversations with
Yes.
potential partner firms. And we always want to approach those conversations with curiosity and humility, where we say we don't know everything and we want to learn more. If you truly have a desire to be best in class at what you do and to fulfill our mission statement and be a one-stop resource for our clients, then you have to approach it with that mindset of being curious and being humble and finding out how to do things better. And so when you do that and you actually listen, you learn a lot. and that's hugely valuable to us. So it brings so much to the table from the people side of things, because ultimately, as you said, Danielle, we are in a people business. When you're in a service business, when you're in a people business, shockingly, you need great people. And so we really love to bring that talent in and bring in the ideas of those folks so that everyone can grow together.
Yeah, Danielle, I know that whenever you and I were having some of our initial conversations, you gave me the analogy that a strategic partnership and a partnership is like a marriage.
Yes.
Right? And I know that was probably something that we had to, we come to where we are today, bringing all of the previous experiences to the table, right?
100%.
We've learned a lot from those. So where have we had to adjust our approach?
Oh, great question. So, I mean, Paul said it best earlier. All these companies that are selling, it's the first time they've ever sold. At one point in time, it was the first time we had ever merged or purchased or bought or strategically aligned. So we didn't know what we didn't know, and we were pretty open with that. And you know, in the analogy of a marriage, when everyone moves in together, we have two kinds of toasters, right? Like which toaster, it doesn't matter who brought what toaster, but like which toaster is the best? Which one are we going to use? Which one fits best in the appliance cabinet? We're open to best in class and whatever is going to make the best impact on not only our people, but our clients as well. So I know our firm is a big proponent of lessons learned, and we own our mistakes, but we don't hide them. We usually bring them out and say, here's what we learned, and show that vulnerability with that. And through that comes more learning, understanding, grace, and then we can do things differently the next time we approach it. Because just because we didn't do it right the first time doesn't mean we don't do it again. It just means we do it again differently.
And Bing, you have an unbelievable experience and track record in successful integrations and acquisitions and M&A and strategic partnerships throughout the course of your career. You know, where have you seen the most successful ones? What are the key characteristics of those?
The most successful that I've been a part of is clear communication and helping people understand what is going on, because when they don't understand, what does that bring? It brings fear, because they don't know if they're going to have a job, or, you know, is my pay schedule going to change? How are my benefits going to change? That's all personal things that actually matter to the people. So very clear direction, communication, telling them where we're going and what we are and what we offer is a huge part of making it successful.
Fear's powerful too. I mean, it is a remarkable motivator for people to do things that you just don't naturally do.
Correct.
You know? And so I think your point on communication is spot on. The more that you can set expectations for people, I think it takes away that fear, because people know what they're walking into. And the more that we're able to take the approach of putting everything out there on the table to let people know exactly what creating value looks like for all parties, I think really helps distill some of the fear, because it starts introducing something new, which is trust. And I think trust in these kinds of relationships is so important, and often it's the ingredient that's missing, and it just breaks the relationship apart over time. But so I'm glad you said that. I think it's absolutely accurate.
And to develop that trust, though, you have to be able to truly listen to them and understand where they're coming from. Because a lot of times in the ones that didn't go well, the companies went in and told them what they needed. And that's not what we are. We want to listen. We want open communications. We want them to ask any question, all questions.
And having expectations outlined and aligned in the very beginning, and letting each party share what their expectations are and what can be met and then what can't be met. And having that clear-cut conversation right up front does help for some healthy trust and respect built right off the bat.
I think also what it's important is giving them something to take away, which is a packet, because I can come in and talk to you, but then I leave and they can't remember. So actually documenting it and just kind of telling, hey, this is the pay schedule, this is the benefits, this is how this is going to work. Again, it's communication, but sometimes leaving that hard copy there so that they can look at it afterwards is really important as well.
Keeping with the marriage analogy, I think that partnerships are very much similar in that in the initial phases, everyone gets very excited, right? It's a lot of fun. We're talking about a lot of money. There's all these great things we could do. And it is very, very easy to set expectations for the upside of what can happen and not have the hard conversations. So just like in a marriage, if you and your partner decide you're just not going to ever talk about having kids, but then you get married and one decides I want to have 7 kids and one decides I don't want any kids, you're going to have a pretty rough road in your marriage. And it's the same
personal
thing.
experience?
Well, we don't have to talk about that today. All right,
I got you.
lessons learned, like we said. And but when you find yourself in those positions and you haven't been willing to have those hard conversations, because Well, they're hard, right? And people don't want to scare each other off. Everyone wants to go to the dance, and it's a lot of fun. But then you end up in a position, and this is where things have gone off the rails in the past, or you've had to make realignment that is not always comfortable. Because you didn't have that initial hard conversation or hard conversations. And so even if it means having to say no on one side or the other, it's much better to get to a no quickly and decide if you're going to be good partners than get to a position where it feels not quite right, but you still do it anyways.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. Integration is where it gets real, right? That's the analogy of the move. We're moving in together, right? So that's when it comes out of the, fairy tale fun zone, and now we're really moving into like what's real and what's not. So if you don't have that expectation up front of what is going to work and what isn't going to work, no one wants to be surprised on moving day, right? And that's when an expectation, whether it was said or believed, when it's not met, that's one of the lessons learned that we have, is that we need to align expectations early and make sure that we all understand that integration and any type of bringing two companies together is never going to be easy. And sometimes it's fun and sometimes it's not, right? But what do we do in those not fun moments? How do we work together? How do we have we do have a common goal, and how do we set that, keep that on the forefront and keep moving together through the hard times, especially when integration doesn't go as planned? I've never sat through an integration or participated in an integration that did go as planned, because every single company is different and unique, right? So they come in with a different set of problems, a different set of clientele. And so we do have to tailor fit some of these. It's not a cookie cutter approach. We do have to tailor fit some of our offerings and our services and our timelines. And our teams do have to adjust. But having good, clear expectations up front does make that process more manageable for each end of the spectrum.
Strategic partnerships are important to Larson because it helps us accomplish our goal of 100,000 families and colleagues and communities flourishing. And the way that those partnerships start off on the best foot is whenever we establish friendship and trust, whenever both sides are fully educated on what's expected of them and what they expect from us, and then we build a common vision together. Those are whenever the best partnerships are established. So I think a lot of times people ask us, how is it that some of the successful partnerships really got on your guys' radar? How was it that some of these these partnerships over the last 10 years that you guys have completed, how have those conversations really started? What were some of the initiation points?
Yeah. The best ones that we have typically come from referrals, right? Because there's that embedded trust. And as we've talked about before, trust is one of the most important elements to a good partnership. We see that across all types of relationships, but especially a business partnership. And so when there is that embedded trust of someone that you know and someone that you trust and have alignment with, whether that's culturally or how you run your business, those tend to work very well because there's already a knowing there, right? And there's less surprises that tend to come from that. So we love when we have advisors that are raving fans of what we're doing. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to drive, because those are going to be our best advocates. We've hit on this idea of 100,000 families flourishing a few times, and it's really important to distinguish the difference between 100,000 and flourishing, because that becomes a natural criterion or a natural limiter. Because if you're just going for a goal, right, and there's plenty of companies out there that are PE backed, or they just have these growth targets that then they want to sell and everybody makes money. That's fine, right? That's a valid business model, but there's no distinguishing between hearts and between what people are actually trying to accomplish from a cultural standpoint. It's simply you're a number, your number plus my number equals bigger number, therefore we're a good partner, right? As long as the numbers line up. And for us, it's much more than that, because it's not just 100,000 families that we have as part of our organization. That's a good ooh-rah-rah type number to go for, but they have to actually be flourishing. And so if someone is not a good fit for our culture and is not aligned with the things that we're doing, then they're probably better served somewhere that's just concerned with numbers. And that's okay. We're okay with that. That's why we cast a wide net. But that naturally limits the people that are going to be a part of the organization.
I think we just had a conversation 2 or 3 days ago with somebody that said that they were being courted by somebody that was private equity backed, and we have a strategic vision for how we want to maintain ownership and equity and all of those things. But the firm was private equity backed, and they said, the gentleman asked, so why should I evaluate your company to sell my business to? And he said, we have a lot of money, and we've got to use it. And that was their sales pitch. And so, I know that there was probably, hopefully, a little more to it. But we do see that often. We do see as Sam said, and I think Paul's alluded to, there is a large group of organizations that are out there that have, these 3 to 5 year terms. And they have, the covenants that are associated where you come in, you're part of something that then gets rolled up and sold off, and then rolled up and sold off again. And so that's not necessarily the long-term vision that we have. And we've strategically aligned ourselves. So can you kind of give us a little bit of the background as to some of the key decisions that we've made over the last 10 years to maintain that, so that can be part of, we have a long-range vision and it's going in this direction.
Yeah, I think one of the major challenges with any company is when you have ownership changing consistently and frequently, there's like whiplash that happens with all kinds of things, whether it's culture, whether it's strategy, whether it's really the why. And the why is a major shift for most companies when you introduce an outside capital partner. Like if you're going to bring in money from somebody else, their why might be completely contradictory to what your why is as an organization. And I see this so often with advisory practices where they're like, oh, I'll just bring in some cash and it's going to be the same as yesterday. It never is. And I think devoid of really spending the time to understand where are their gaps between motivations, it just leads people to get to some really frustrated places. The private equity group's not happy because there isn't performance. The advisory team's not happy because they're being told what they should be doing from a group that maybe has never done financial advisory. And this is a major differentiator, I think, for the way that we have designed this. And it's been fun seeing how this group has put together something that I think is different in the marketplace. To be a size of a firm that we are and yet not have outside money invested it with us, that's a major distinction. And it allows us to be true to our mission. And it allows it to ooze out of us. And this is, we were talking about, like, where do you hear from new advisory teams that want to join Larson? And some of these come, like, I think one of our advisors was given a presentation and one of the attendees, a doctor, said, my cousin should talk to you. He's looking at taking a job and moving his practice to a different firm, and I think he'd be a really good fit here based on what I'm hearing you say. And so sure enough, they had the meeting, and this advisor moved his practice, and he's been here at Larson for years. And so when you can have a consistent message that's tied to a consistent mission and vision and values, I think that gives you a cutting edge because people know what to expect, which is what you were talking about, Bing. And this is ultimately, it removes some of the fear that naturally comes because you don't know what you're getting into. And in this case, we've been consistent. For 20 years, we have been forging this path. And we are aiming towards seeing more people, the quantitative and the qualitative. So it's important to have all of that.
I've worked with a lot of other organizations, and one of the things I hear from a leadership standpoint is, oh, we just changed our core values again. We're really excited about it. Our core values have been the same since day one, right? And we have built on them and around them. So we've avoided that culture identity crisis. So if we don't know who we are, we don't know who to bring in. And just as much as we want to be chosen and just as much as we want to choose the right people, I think it does become a more natural alignment when you know who you are and you can be open and honest about who we are. Because doesn't mean we don't make mistakes and there's no bumps and bruises along the way, but just being really organic to who we've been from the beginning keeps us rooted. And so firms can join us and we can grow with them instead of growing kind of against them and then having this uprooted. We don't even know who we are anymore. And that hasn't been the case, really,
No, and I think the values are extremely important,
Yeah.
which we talk about. We're goal oriented, right? So what does that mean? It means that we're clear on what we're trying to achieve, and we held ourselves accountable for that. We're servant leaders, which means that we are there to serve our team and take any of the obstacles out of the way and listen and help them succeed. And then I would also say that we're a warrior spirit, which people are like, what's that mean? And to me, that means that we are going to do the hard work and we're not going to quit when it gets uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, so those three things brings our culture, which is clear goals, supportive leadership, and a team that will take us through it.
It's pretty big. So Alec, the world of AI and technology has been something, there's not a headline that doesn't hit my phone or email or anything that doesn't say AI is going to change everything. And I think that there's some truth to that, but the truth is a nuanced perspective. And I think you've been leading our technology division very carefully and tactfully, and it's something that you deserve a lot of credit. And so as we look to the future and as we look to leverage tools that make us more efficient, because people don't feel as if they're flourishing if they have to keep doing the same thing, if they can't learn and evolve and continue to grow in their career and deepen a skill set in something. What have you seen from the technology's perspective and from AI? I just kind of want to open it up to you to say, hey, as we head to this goal of 100,000 colleagues, communities, and families flourishing, like where is the role of technology in that?
Yeah, I think it's all about how we can leverage it to continue to do what we do. We're a service industry. We're a people and relationship-based industry. And so just because all this AI and technology stuff is coming out and making those things arguably easier and faster, that doesn't mean that the quality is there in terms of deepening those relationships and truly understanding them. And so for us, it's all about how can we engage hearts, but at scale, and continue to grow, but not lose sight of what this entire business is about, right? And so truly applying our mission statement of empowering all to flourish and using that lens to judge technology and to judge the advances of it. And so figuring out and identifying ways of how to embed those things without losing sight of what truly it is that we do here.
Yeah, I think that there's two components to this. There's the headlines of AI is going to take over everything. And that's very scary. Change is scary for anyone. And people tend not to like change that much. But you've got two options. It's coming. So you can choose to embrace it and get really good at it and implement it in your business. Or you can choose to put your head in the sand and pretend like it doesn't exist and that it's not going to have any impact on our industry. And we've chosen the first option. We're going to embrace this, and we're going to do it in a thoughtful manner because there's so much out there. There are so many vendors, and there's so much technology, and there's all this stuff that's thrown in our face all the time. But we have to be very thoughtful in how we actually do that. Are we being efficient just for efficiency's sake? Or are we utilizing these tools, and that's what they are, to be more effective for our clients and for our advisors and for our staff? And so if you can augment and upskill your people, you have a competitive edge in the market. And if we can use this to augment the things we're currently doing for our clients and for our colleagues so that clients get better outcomes, that's massive, right? And so that's really what our focus is on, is utilizing this as a tool that it was created to be, to create better outcomes for our colleagues and our clients.
That's great.
There's a connector here too with technology and our specific stated values and culture. Bing, you said we are goal-oriented servant leaders with a warrior spirit, which is spot on. And how that correlates into technology is we recognize that we have to be at the leading edge of technology. And so often, the larger you get as a firm, the more you move away from that innovation. And I think it doesn't have to be this way. I mean, there are plenty of examples out there where you can safely and securely move into the future and bring in and adapt these new things that are out there, AI or whatever it is, software, while still being safe for our customers. And most firms look at this risk ratio and they say it's not worth the added risk to be on the front edge of this stuff. And so they wait. And the problem with that is by the time they actually move into this space, it's antiquated. The speed of change is exponentially increasing. And with that kind of a mindset, it really creates an unfair advantage for the groups who are willing to innovate. And so I'm really proud of the team that you've put together, Alec, to design things in a way that allow our advisors to innovate, but yet still make sure that the mothership is protected. Because at its core, we are a company that has to steward other people's resources. And part of that is their identities and their, information financially. I mean, this is their financial livelihood. So it's a critical line that is delicately walked, but going back to our culture and the type of people that we have, those are aligned. We have to keep driving towards the goal. We have to be tenacious about being very effective in protecting that information, but we've got to move forward because that's what's best for our clients.
I'd say also we find ourselves in this real sweet spot right now where when you're a smaller firm, you just don't have a huge amount of ability to spend on technology, to have people beta test it and then implement it. And so your scope of what you're actually able to do is quite limited. Yeah. And people just feel left behind. And hearkening back to what I talked about earlier, where people get to this certain size where now they're learning how to do management and they're learning how to do payroll and all these things, AI is just like another thing on their plate, and it's just too much. Now, if you're a really large firm, you don't necessarily have a resource problem, you've got an implementation problem. So while you might be able to go and find the best technology and spend hundreds of millions of dollars on it, it's really difficult when you have 200,000 employees to get actual utilization across the organization and implement across the organization. And so we're at this beautiful size where we have not resource scarcity, but we have enough resources to go and actually test things, and we've got the drive and we've got the curiosity to do those things. But we're also small enough that we can implement those innovations across our organization and move quickly. And so it's a great place to be. It's super exciting. I wake up every day and sometimes don't go to sleep because I'm playing with these new tools that we have because it's just so much fun. We're in a very exciting era. Something someone said to me is, it's a great time. It's never been a better time to be a builder right now. And that really resonated because this is just an incredible era to be a builder and do new things.
Big playground, yeah. It seems like one of the consistent themes that we hear when we bring on new groups is, how is my tech stack going to change? And I think it'd be great to hear you talk a little bit about how you are inclusive of really all people coming in with all different backgrounds with their tech stack, but yet still have a common structure that we can, protect the client data and then also operationalize. I think you've done a really great job kind of connecting those threads.
Yeah, when approaching anyone's tech stack, it starts with one of the oldest technologies in the book, and it's with our ears. Like, we need to actually listen and understand what it is that people have implemented on their side. They've made these decisions for a reason to get where they are, and effectively we've liked what we've seen, right? The fact that we're having these types of conversations is because we've been impressed with what they've been able to put together, whether that be specific workflows or specific platforms. They've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and we're excited to hear about them. And so we love it whenever someone's coming in and they're already well in advance on the technology front, way ahead of us, and bringing their ideas with them. We're a firm that, we've talked time and time again about our culture, and this idea of an idea meritocracy, where the best idea wins, is something that I really feel oozes within our culture, and everyone kind of mutually respects and understands. We seize opportunities to share those types of ideas. And so when we're having those conversations around people's tech stacks, we're curious about them, and we're trying to figure out ways where, if you're on a totally different email system, why did you choose that? Are there features that we haven't unlocked on our side yet that we need to be considering enabling, or finding ways that we can implement something similar? And so that's effectively the nature of the game, is just trying to understand people's intent with the decisions they've made, and making sure that our tech stack is meeting the bare minimum expectations when someone new is coming on board, and at an ideal state exceeding the client's expectations, depending on whatever it is that the technology is solving.
And then you've also instituted across the organization, AI learning time. And I think that just from a cultural perspective, I think that that's something very unique. And so I'd love to hear you kind of talk about what that means, and then how that kind of plays into this broader continuing to help all flourish, is to continue helping people to learn a new, something new, right? So I would love to have you just kind of talk about that a little bit, and then I'll go to Bing to talk about warrior service time, because I think those two things play nicely together.
Yeah, it's really cool here at Larson, where we have the ability to invest in our people, and one of those core benefits is allowing learning time to exist. And so we put a big spotlight on AI, just trying to keep up with the pace of this industry. Again, if you're not trying to grow or develop those types of skills, it's coming whether we like it or not, to Sam's point. And so it's been something that our entire company has invested resources in, to identify platforms that are cutting edge, bleeding edge rather, if you will, that effectively giving those resources and tools in the hands of our people. It's kind of an interesting place to be, where we don't even necessarily know all of the content to train our folks. We're trying to just get the platforms in the hands of our people, so we can all kind of just mess around and play with those things, and figure out ways that we can implement them into our daily workflows and processes. And so it's been really cool to see the engagement with those things, trying to do what we do best in terms of structuring these types of new training initiatives, and come up with processes to share this information. But it's been really cool to see how we've shared amongst our people these other ideas around how they're implementing these types of tools. And so it's been a fun experience, to be a part of.
It's great.
I think to talk to what Alec talked about, listening, I think that's really important as we do the strategic partnership, because somebody said to me in the organization that when I came in, I didn't come in and just start saying, hey, this is how it was. It was more that you take a step back and listen to what they've done. Again, there's a reason why they did it, right? And maybe I'll learn something from it. We all can, right? So I think that's really important there. But then the Warrior Impact Time is where we actually dedicate 16 hours to each of our employees to be able to go out and do some community service, which I think is awesome, because you're actually being paid for 16 hours to go out and do something for a community. And that's a volunteer time that is it was very impressive when I came to this organization, and I saw that there's dedicated time for that.
And it's not on weekends, right? This is Monday through Friday, traditional
right,
work
during
week.
your work hours that you
go get in the community.
Correct.
Right? And so I love that, and that's just part of, we're part of a bigger organism. We're part of a bigger ecosystem.
Correct.
That's not the knee-jerk reaction that everybody has when they start a company, is like, yeah, absolutely. Let us know when you went on Saturday to go serve at the food bank, but make sure you're here at 8 o'clock sharp on Monday, right? That's traditionally how it goes. I would love to hear kind of the heartbeat of where that came from.
I think it goes to the culture of servant leadership. And this is a big component of what does it look like to serve our communities. There's so many businesses that are embedded into communities, yet you never see the people out there representing the company serving. And that's just astounding to me. Danielle and I have worked together, how many years now?
16.
16 years we've worked together. So we've been on a few of these, and what I really like about these service days that we go out there, and these warrior days that get together, and we step outside of our normal boundaries of being in an office setting, is that you get to really see how people are wired. Yes. And you get to experience what does life look like outside of the four walls of an office. And sometimes there's some pretty lively conversations as you're hauling, old furniture out of a house of a hoarder who needed help, moving his stuff. Or, there's been some crazy, crazy times.
You also learn special skill sets you did not know your colleagues had, right? Negotiation skills, or they're skilled painters. You just don't know.
Well, one of my favorite ones. We were working with Habitat for Humanity here in St. Louis, and this was probably 10 years ago. And we had two houses, and I don't remember if it was you, Danielle, in the other house, but somehow they gave me like a nail gun, and they're like, get up there and start nailing the soffit down. And I'm not super detailed. It's no shock, but I'm over here nailing this stuff, and then I can watch the supervisor looking back and forth between the two houses. And we had somebody on Danielle's team on the other house, and it was like very precise, and it looked amazing. And neither of us had ever done this job, but he looks over at me, he's like, "Get off the ladder." And so we had a nice conversation, because I had to rip all mine down and do it over again. But that was a good example of, this is why we have our different roles within the organization, and we should keep our lines clear. But it was right there in true form, for everybody to see. But it was a great time.
Well, when we talk about families flourishing, as Paul mentioned, we've worked together for 16 years. I actually became a wife and a mother while being an employee here. So I have been married 15 years. My children are 12 and 7. So I started here before I started there, right? And one of the most impactful days I ever had with my son was when he was 7, when I got to take him on one of our Warrior Impact Days. And we actually went out and served the homeless. And it was a conversation that we had, but not one we had experienced. And then we could have a real conversation in context. And so without that opportunity to bring my child alongside me and work around all of these people who are serving in the community, it just opened up an experience that 7-year-olds think that everyone lives like them. Right. We all think everyone lives like us until we see someone that doesn't. So I do like that it opened up all of those aspects for those conversations, and then certainly started in my child a heart for service, right? He's tried to give money to people who are not homeless, and I'm like, that's not a homeless person, buddy, right? It just opened up a piece in him of something he wouldn't have had without these experiences being built into the ecosystem that we have at Larson.
And this is the beauty of the industry that we're in. We help people with their money, and we help them set up their retirements and their kids' college. And that's all great. But when they die with their pile of money and all of their stuff, nobody's looking back and saying, I had more than you did. I mean, they're going to look back and they're going to look for these experiences. Mm-hmm. And one of the beautiful things is when we get to see our clients collectively come and participate with us in these. It's the families, it's our clients, our colleagues. I mean, it's a really holistic approach to say there's more in life than just piling up a bunch of cash. Sure, we'll help you get really lean and mean and efficient from a tax perspective when we build out a financial advisor's book of business and helping their clients. But at the end of the day, there has to be a destination that's beyond that. And ultimately, it goes back to helping others. And I think this is that servant leadership that's embedded into these Warrior Days that we so lovingly look forward to as an organization.
We get a lot of good stories out of it.
Lots of stories.
I think, too, this stems from when we look at our clients' assets and we try and help them financially, you can always tell where someone's heart is based on where the checkbook is. And so while people may say, well, I love to do this and I love to do that and I help with this, you look at their checkbook and it's like, well, I mean, you gave away 0.25% of your net worth over the last 10 years. I mean, that's great. I'm not knocking that. But is your heart really there, or is that just something that you're talking about? And so to have an organization where we really put our money where our mouth is, where executives are compensated in large part based on us doing these things. It's not just you have this thing that you can go and do, you can go spend time in the community. It's, no, you are heavily encouraged to go and do that, because if we really believe this and we really say this is a value, then we should put our money where our mouth is as an organization. And so for me, being able to come in, and I say work in quotations because it doesn't oftentimes feel like work, you get to come in and be a part of an organization every day that truly has purpose beyond just a livelihood. That's incredibly impactful for me.
And I think that's a perfect transition into, as we have probably collectively looked at, we've had a number of successful transactions, and then there's probably 10 times that we've gotten to the dance with, but they seemed good on paper, but it just wasn't a fit. I'm sure that there's been times that we've said no. What are often those reasons that as the people that we're making the selection of who to partner with based on value and culture and all of those things. I'm not going to start saying all the answers, but I'm just curious as to, what this table's perspective is. It could look just so strong. All the numbers are, they all add up, and all the Excel pivot tables and everything that he loves is just wonderful. But there's that missing component. And so what's in your experience, what's some of that?
I think the thing that comes to mind for me, it's kind of a funny little anecdote, but when you take somebody out for a meal before you bring them on board and you decide to work together, you really learn a lot about the person. Like, you get to experience, how do they work with their server? Yep. Like, how do they treat other people? Are they willing to engage in conversation that's deeper than sports or the weather? Or, are they really interested at the heart stuff? And, those are the types of things that over the years, we've really recognized the importance of them, to make sure that before we consummate a partnership with somebody, we want to make sure that we know who these people are, and they need to know who we are. And to your point, there are plenty who have said, you know what, this just isn't the right fit. And we're really grateful for them sharing that. Sure. Because I would much rather have that before we start working together than after.
Absolutely.
And it just makes it that much easier. And I think we've had the opportunity to share that with other people as well. Yeah. And so yes, inevitably there are plenty of organizations out there, and the goal here is to matchmake. It's to align around a vision and a compelling why. And if those are misaligned, we're going to have big time problems. Yeah. And that misalignment can be in how you treat people. It can be why you do what you do, like directionally. There are a lot of reasons for that.
It's the culture.
It is the culture, yes.
And how do they define success? Success means something different to everyone. How do you define growth? What does that mean to you? If the way that you define success is in numbers only, and it's not in people growing or serving communities, then we're not aligned in what success means.
Yeah, and I would say, to extend on that, is that culture is just because it's not a transaction. Sure. If it's just them looking at that it's a money transaction for them, it really is about the people, right? And if they're not treating their people properly, like a server or whatever, then it's probably not a right fit.
I think it's always the people, right? And I don't think we should shy away from, numbers are great. And when we talk about bringing folks in and helping and empower them to achieve their goals, part of that is to make more money. And that's fine. I think money is an amazing tool, but it is not the end all be all. That tool still goes in the hands of a person, and that's the priority. We have to prioritize people first. And interestingly enough, when you do that, I'm a huge believer that the other stuff follows. The money follows, the happiness with your job follows, because you've recognized that people are valued, and you're naturally going to value other folks. So not easily done, because sometimes it is. Sam, we were talking earlier, sometimes you have to say some hard things. And it's how you say it that's more important than what you say. And by not addressing issues and conflict when you're in a partnership, it's actually more condemning of the relationship than anything else, because you're not willing to step in and help that person grow. And so that's a major issue. And eventually that fissure just becomes so wide that the relationship, degrades.
Truth is kind, right? And sometimes those truths are not comfortable, and you have to have those conversations. But just like in a marriage, you see all the growth when you're working through hard things. Yeah. It's not from when we're all hitting record numbers and everyone's doing great. Anybody can do that. Anything is great when you're in a honeymoon phase and everybody's hitting record numbers. It's in those hard times. And so we ultimately want to be partnered with people who are willing to dive into that with us, because it is coming at some point. At some point, there's going to be a disagreement. There's going to be a misalignment. It's just inevitable. We can try and put the best processes and people and systems in place, but guess what? We're people, and we screw up, and it's not pretty sometimes. And so we want to be aligned with people who are willing to go on that journey with us.
That's right. Flourishing, I always envision like a little plant coming out of the ground. And, for the plant to grow, you have to have rain. And rain usually doesn't come without a storm and lightning and thunder and wind, and yet that plant grows and flourishes when it goes through those tribulations and those hard seasons. And that's what we're about. We're about seeing people flourish. And if you're believing that to be true, then you also have to understand that there are going to be challenges, and you walk through some really hard times together. But the key is that we're for each other and we're willing to walk through together. And I think that often comes up when we are in conversations with people, to understand, like, what's your real motivation here? Do you really want to flourish, or do you just want to say it and not do the hard work and just take the check, you know?
Both are fine. The right answer is the honest one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, just be straight with us and just say this is what it is. And if it's I want to check, then we're going to be really interested in that next generation to say, does that generation have a different desire than the generation that is just looking for the check? Yep. Because I think you can find ways to accomplish, the goals, but without identifying them up front, you can get yourself sideways quickly.
So, I think a nice transition is understanding what it really does mean for a firm, for a group, for a company to be the right fit for Larson. Because we discussed it. Everything could look great on paper, but if there was one word that you guys could give that would say, this is the one thing that determines whether or not somebody's a great fit for a partnership with Larson, what is that one word?
Culture comes to mind for me. What's their culture like?
Sure.
I think I would probably use the word curious. Like, they're open to looking at things maybe differently, and that goes both directions. Like, we have to be curious, and I think they have to be curious. And it sets a pretense about you that you're willing to learn, which is maybe a second word, teachable. And when we're not teachable, that's really challenging, because we all get locked into our ways. And to Alec's point, there's most likely somebody else doing things better than you are. And we want to know about that. And so if you're not curious to ask the questions, you're just never going to learn. You're going to stagnate, and somebody else is going to pass you up because they are curious.
So I'm going to break your question because you said one, and I'm
he
going
used
to,
two, so you
yeah.
go ahead.
And so I'm going to go up to three because you asked me yesterday, Alex, you asked, what do you want to see out of your son when he gets older? And I think what I said was, I will be extremely proud if he's curious and hungry and kind. And that goes into the culture question, right? That's what we want to see with people that we work with. You've got to be curious, because you don't grow without curiosity. But you also don't necessarily grow with curiosity if you're not hungry. Because if you just ask a lot of questions but never do any work to learn anything, and you don't have that hunger, then it's not going to really go anywhere. And ultimately, you've got to be kind. And you have to be someone that other people enjoy being around and takes care of people. If you don't have that, if it's all about you and just your personal self of growing and learning new things, that doesn't help anybody else out, and that's just not our culture. And so people that fall in those categories do really well within our firm.
Feel free, Alec and Danielle.
I used one word, he used two, he used three.
There you go. So yeah.
I was trying to find one word that encapsulated what you just said, but I came up with individual. I've never done anything by myself well, and I don't think at Larson we do anything by ourselves particularly as good as we can with a group. So if you come in with this is my business, this is how I run it, this is how it goes best, wash, rinse, repeat, that kind of speaks to what Paul is saying about lack of curiosity. And we do like to grow, and with that comes change and new directions and try things that maybe don't work, and then refining. And so if you're really embedded in my way is the best way, it's probably not going to be the Larson way.
Sure. Mr. Alec.
We've all said wonderful words, and I was taking my pause, so I've been over here struggling to come up with one. But I feel like...
I saw it on your notes.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I feel I mean, in terms of just the quality that's helpful, not only just for a fit at Larson, but just in this process of deciding to join with someone. I think just communication is a critical element of that. Communicating your needs, communicating what you want to do, your desires, what are you trying to accomplish, and for us to do the same, and for each other to understand one another. And so for this to go smoothly, we actually need to be able to put into words what it is that we're trying to accomplish together. And so communication is just, yeah, absolutely critical.
My word is how, but it's an acronym. I'm going to sneak it in. So how stands, to me, it stands for humble. Goes to what you just said. If you're humble, that means that you know that what's gotten you here may not take you there, and that we can all learn from other people, right? Open-minded means that there's so many other things that are out there, to the technology point, to the people front, to the operational excellence that we have, to the investments, to the leadership and kind of the future vision casting and everything. There's more to learn, right? So be open-minded and then be willing, right? You can solve a lot of things if you apply how, and so I think that's the one thing I always try to determine is somebody, what's their how quotient, right? How humble are they? How open-minded are they? And how willing are they to go and do the things that will be necessary? I tried my best. Paul doesn't care what my best is. He said, is the job going to get done, right? And so I think that high level of expectation, I love that. That's flourishing for me, is somebody holding me to a standard and saying, hey, I expect this of you. And sometimes those are hard conversations too. Yeah. And so that has to be done with grace. That has to be done with, again, a curious and a humble spirit. But that's why I've loved being here, is because there is a great how quotient. We have humble people, we have open-minded people, and we have people that are really willing to roll up their sleeves and get to work. And if I don't see that and reciprocate it on the other side, that's probably, we probably need to figure out just what the main objective is collectively and what is that common vision. Because if we can't see that collectively, then I'm not sure how it's going to go. When somebody puts their trust in us and says, can these guys at Larson actually pull off all the stuff that they're talking about, right? Can they do that and then actually not disrupt my business as well? So Alec, I'm going to lean on you pretty heavily, you and Danielle, for kind of the technology and the operational side of things. When in a world getting ever more technologically complex, how does our in-house team kind of guide that technology transfer process effectively? What does that look like so that they can remain doing the things that they're best at, and then lean on us and the technology team to take care of what we do best?
Yeah, it starts with listening and understanding first and foremost of what it is, what processes exist, what technology solutions are in place that we need to be considering as we look to transition, right? Where's the data housed, and what tools exist to keep those things secure, right? Like we've gone through this multiple times, and so it's not just a theoretical practice, but it's operational. And that's what's been really cool about this, is how we've been able to apply our lessons learned and to incorporate that into our due diligence process. So we know what questions to ask when it comes to talking about integration, right? Business disruption is exactly the kind of thing that we're trying to avoid. And so even when we talk about just client communication and ensuring that on day one of an integration, the emails that are going out to clients are consistent and look the way that they've always looked, and are delivered on the same times that they're always delivered on, right? Like the groups that are coming on board, like they have their communication cadences the same way that we do. Sure. And so effectively, it begins with that, first and foremost, is listening and then being able to communicate those things.
So preventing their clients from calling them and saying, man, did you get hacked? Right? That's basically what you're saying is, we take care of all of those things, and we figure out, not just from the technology standpoint, to cut everything over and make sure that there's a clear line. But then you work very closely with the marketing group that brings all of those, all the branding, all the communications. You know, there's a high level of sequencing that goes on for client communications, you know, starting on that first day all the way for the first probably 4 or 5 weeks, correct? And so we're working in unison, not just with your team and the marketing organization, but also operationally. So Danielle, from your perspective, you know, just from a high level, when a firm says yes, really what happens next?
Yeah, great question. So I'm not a big fan of surprises. So I don't like anyone else to be surprised either.
Thought it was just
so,
me.
Yep, no, I'm not a big fan. So we typically start with what we like to call a kickoff meeting, and we kind of go through, what are your questions? What are your biggest concerns? Let's get curious. Let's make sure that we get those questions and address all of those questions, if not today, but like we had a feedback loop and that we're following back up. And then from there, we can take that question and understand their unique tech stack and what that all looks like, and put that together in an integration plan. And every firm that we partner with is going to have a unique and different integration plan, but it will follow along the same outline, right? Everyone has to integrate tech, everyone has to get a marketing plan, everyone has to have their clients contacted, and we're doing that in an order of, this is happening on this day. So there are no surprises, and so there can be some, well thought out, hey, what if this happens? Kind of a, contingency plan, if you will, because not everything goes correctly, but we want things to happen incorrectly behind the scenes, not necessarily client facing or otherwise. So we're doing this as a team and as a unique partnership. So we start with that kickoff meeting, and then we're setting a weekly meeting in a cadence, and we're meeting the same time every single week based on the needs of the plan that we're working through. We'll find a time that's unique and fits everyone, and then we bring all of the needed partnerships into that fold. So we'll bring marketing in for a meeting. Tech is a part of that meeting. We will have our compliance come in as a part of that meeting. So not only are introductions being made, but it's kind of pieced out and like slow rolled, so it's more digestible, right? We have a whole big plan that rolls out, and then we go through it piece by piece, week by week, until it's done. And sometimes when it's done, it's like, all right, this is our last meeting. It's a little bit sad, but they're also into the fold, and then integration has occurred.
Absolutely. Sam?
Yeah, a big part of this is on the front end, and it's doing the work ahead of time, because where you see things go off the rails oftentimes is when there's not a plan in place and people aren't on the same page ahead of time. And so everyone gets really excited and we consummate a deal, now we're all working together, but there's no plan from the operations side. And so what inevitably happens is there becomes misalignment across operations teams. Because if you think about who tends to be involved in these deals, it's typically the leader of the firm and then someone on our team. It's typically Alex and I who are going to be working with them on the front end. But if they don't have the operations folks on their side and we don't have the operations folks on our side, all working together to ensure we all understand where each other stands and what our plan is ahead of time, then there's misalignment, and that causes a lot of problems. And so really a lot of the work that we do is on the front end before anything ever consummates, to make sure that we have a plan and that everyone's aligned on the expectations. That way there's no surprises, like you mentioned, on the back end. And so really it's doing that pre-work, and that's not the work that's necessarily fun, right? Nobody wants to fill out a 20-page form. It's not that bad, don't worry. But nobody wants to fill out a long form and go through all of their systems and where their contracts live and all of those things. That's just not very sexy or glamorous, but it's necessary. And if you can do that work up front, it just makes everything else so much easier. And so we really harp on that. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it makes life so much better for everybody else.
And it does help us identify hiccups early.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So we can spend some time working on them so they don't disrupt business and client communications.
Yeah, and I think that's been something that, as we talk about an integration excellence practice, right? The whole intention of that is to make sure that we are excellent in the way that we do this. And so starting off a partnership, you want to do it in the best way possible. That's why we want to have awesome weddings with fantastic dances that I heard that, we had here. But, from the technology perspective, the landscape of the advisor force and firms, RIAs and advisor teams out there, there is a significant portion of them that are probably not the most technologically. We at Larson are probably in the top maybe 2 or 3% of tech leaders. You mentioned it, on the bleeding edge in a lot of instances. Not just the leading edge, but the bleeding edge. And I think we do that intentionally for a reason. But for firms that are not super technologically advanced, how do we kind of bring them along and not scare them with, oh, look at all this AI? How do we bring them along and kind of get them up, get their team, get their talent up to speed on where technology is inside of the Larson ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty about it is that we meet people where they are. And we have a wide breadth of knowledge here at Larson, and we have our subject matter expertise in whatever verticals that we have across all of our different back office support arms. And so when a group is coming on board and they're not necessarily that technologically advanced or know all the bells and whistles of the latest and greatest AI platform that's out there, no harm, no foul, right? No sweat. And we're happy to join in and make sure that they get to focus on what they do best. That's what they've done to get where they are, right? That's servicing their clients. That's developing those relationships. And so our goal is to make sure that those are not disturbed and those are continuing to grow at the rate that they've been growing at. And so effectively, we just try to make that as seamless as possible when it comes to like moving different technology platforms or providing training on the tools that we have in-house to kind of compare them to what they currently have. That's a part of that due diligence process, is asking those types of questions to understand how it is that they currently operate the way that they do, for us to then take that feedback and translate that into how we do what we do, to then ensure that they're ready to go day one to use the systems that we have.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there's been instances where people that we've brought into the Larson family, brought into the Larson fold, that are doing things from a technology standpoint that are just far ahead of where we were whenever we met them. It would be really valuable to hear about when we see people doing something well, from technology and people and operations and investment. How do we embrace all those things inside of the Larson ecosystem?
Yeah, we love that situation when someone's come in and already knows well in advance more than what we've ever had or been able to accomplish internally, right? It's effectively one of those things where if you're looking to join a firm like ours, we're doing something that you're interested in, that you haven't seen before, you're excited in joining, and then likewise, right? We've done that matchmaking process. And so whenever we're joining forces, we're always being curious and looking at ways that other groups have been able to figure out how to implement certain things to engage more hearts at scale, right? And so whether that be optimized workflows or other platforms that we haven't heard about, using AI to make things more efficient, or finding better ways to lock down data to ensure things are secure, because trust is everything, clients' information is everything, right? And so if a firm is doing something that we haven't seen before, we're all ears and we're always looking to learn. And so, yeah.
I'm gonna ask you to just go one layer deeper. From your perspective, if somebody is doing something, a little more exciting or a way that we haven't done it before, and we see that it just makes that advisor-client relationship that much better, like how are you seeing AI and technology in some of the firms that we're talking to on a daily basis? What are some of the things that have you and your team really, really excited about the future of where Larson is going to make that advisor-client relationship the most optimal that it could be?
Yeah, it's really cool seeing just how quickly this AI is advancing to allow us to do more things with less. Not necessarily people, but resources when it comes to various platforms. And the idea of having to have 25 different platform logins to all these different things to do certain elements of a process to ensure a client's needs are being met. Whereas, what we're seeing is these things like data lake solutions that are being able to connect all of these miscellaneous platforms together to allow that information to be accessible to an advisor to see how their business is performing, but on a more intimate level. And then also being able to layer AI on top of that. And so being able to get insights like on a whim, being able to just ask in basic languages, if you had a buddy right next to you, to ask them a fun question about how your business is performing or how a particular client is doing based on the things that they're invested in, for example. You can get that answer just in natural language once you tie those things to a data lake type solution. And so that's what's really exciting on our side, is being able to see how that is being built in the industry, but also how we're implementing that here at Larson. It's been really fun to see that come to fruition.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that you've done really well, and I'm really proud of the team for their focused attention to staying on the cutting edge, because there's a really fine line between opening new ideas with AI when you open up things like Anthropic's Claude, or you're doing GPT, or you're doing this, because you're dealing with client information. And so while we want to be out there and create agentic AI tools that are functioning to enhance, our ability to serve our clients, I think there's a really dangerous line that you can walk if you're not careful to releasing information into the public, sphere, where it can really come back to hurt our clients. And so, Alex's team has, I think, really done a phenomenal job of putting these new ideas into a petri dish and keeping them very contained. And we try it, and we really build it and identify what's working, and you find the people in the organization that are most interested and equipped to be able to do this. And then once we get it to work and we've tested it to make sure that it's safe for the group, then he brings it back out, and it's pretty impressive. I would also say, I think another thing that is more and more common, we used to have texts go around the organization to be like, Paul wants a credit card from, whatever, Quick Trip, and you go out there and get one real quick. And, those kind of phishing things and scams are like so, elementary to what we're seeing today. Yeah. I think it'd be helpful to have you share a little bit about some of the tools that you now have going out on a monthly basis on a proactive. I think it's remarkable the things that you've put in place.
The same way all this technology is allowing us to be more efficient and more precise, it's exactly allowing threat actors to do the exact same, but for nefarious purposes. And so effectively, whenever something like that happens, we've been able to implement, alerts and different mechanisms to track when these situations happen, to jump on them immediately or as quickly as we can. It's always the goal, right? Is to minimize both the downtime for the advisor, but also the potential situation where a threat actor has access to information. And so we were quickly able to shut that down, but then from there, immediately jumping into logs and using these AI tools, as well as forensic experts that we partner with, to be able to analyze the situation in terms of what was accessed during that time frame, and then being able to consolidate that quickly to then take action on it. The goal is to minimize any potential information to be used for nefarious purposes. And so once we have that information, then go and execute on that, working with our partners to let them know as quickly as possible. So that way, if any sort of information is exposed, we want to put the client's, mind at rest by coordinating with the custodian or whoever that account number it's tied to get moved. So that way that information can't be used for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, and those are reactive things too. And I think those are all amazing. Like the speed with which you're able to jump in and shut that corridor is important. But I think you've also gone and done proactive things too that are pretty remarkable. I don't know if you maybe share some of that, because I thought that was really interesting, the idea that you brought up with the monthly cadence that you've got set up now.
Yeah. I mean, just in terms of phishing tests, we're always looking to stay on top of what are threat actors doing in the industry day to day. And so even recently with the tax deadline, we're recording this, I guess, around in April. And so we were trying to tailor that for the time of the season. And so advisors are looking and receiving active emails about tax returns. And so sending out a fake phishing email that does just that, a fake client email chain that looks legit, and asking them to follow up with their Larson advisor. And you click the link and it's a fake Microsoft sign-in page, if that's...
We got you, right?
Exactly. And
Do you have Rick Roll playing?
Yeah. And so...
Opportunity to learn here.
Exactly. And so I think that's been what's really exciting, is that, we're using these tools to keep up more than anything with what a third actor is doing to ensure that our advisors are feeling confident in the conversations that they're having to address with their clients who are just as scared about this new technology and how it can be applied for bad purposes. Sure. I'm sure all everyone's getting text messages these days from from third actors asking for hey, like change your flight number, enter the access code, and then boom, giving you a credit card or like whatever purpose. And so our goal is to make sure that we're instilling confidence and trust, not only for our advisory teams to facilitate those conversations, but for the clients as well, whenever they're trusting us with their information that they're giving up to us.
So I'm sure that you cover this. There's tens of thousands of attempts on, if not more, there's probably hundreds of thousands a day that come in that we have a nice force field around us. And then whenever, something does happen, we have a triangulated SWAT team that of internal team members and then external experts. So, people can know that they've got everything taken, your team has everything taken care of. Like, it's not a matter of if, but when, right? I don't want to sound like, oh, we're all worried about everything. We know things are going to happen, so we proactively assign all of these things and get them all taken care of, right? So we appreciate that on your side of things. Kind of bringing us back on when we encounter an organization that's doing something extraordinary, either on the operational or the investments or the people side of things. I'd love to just kind of sit with that for a moment, being on your side of things with people and, people excellence. What are you excited about over the next, probably 2, 3, 4, 5 years as it pertains to what we're going to be doing with new firms that are partnering with us, as well as what we're doing with Larson team members that have been here for 20 years or so?
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I think that's important because, again, we've talked about it. Bringing people on is really important in how you do it, the communication. But the other thing is, as we said, ideas. If they have ideas that they want to bring, I want it to be like an open where they're not like scared to bring the idea to us. We want that open forum for people to be able to share that because, again, could be better than what we're doing right now, right? Or they did something that we didn't even think about. So I want them to be able to feel like they're sharing that with us and feel comfortable doing it. Because that's the thing. Some people don't ever say anything because they don't feel comfortable that we're approachable, right? And that's really exciting for me. But also career development, because a lot of times these smaller organizations are kind of a flat organization, so there's not that opportunity. So building training and development, somebody going into management and going into leadership and giving them that experience, because again, they're smaller organizations, right? But we're a lot bigger and we have more opportunities. So we want to encourage them that, hey, you can do that. And we're here to support you while you're wanting to do that. I think that's really important. I think just getting better with the benefits that we offer. We're looking at that because that's important. Today's statistics show that money is important, but a lot of time it's the additional benefits that we offer as an organization that makes us that employer of choice, right? So I think that's really critical to what we do, but it's listening to the people, understanding what they're looking for, and hearing, because we may put out a program, but they thought of a different program. I want them to be able to come and suggest that. So it's that open line. I give everybody my email and they can have it and they can actually contact me directly. I want them to be able to come to me and say, hey, I met you. I really wanted to talk to you about it. And so one of the things that we've started is a Flourish Connect committee. And that Flourish Connect was really just to get to know the chief people officer. So it wasn't that scary person that walked through the organization. It's really becoming that person that you can come talk to and partner with. And that's been a huge thing because I want to know them as much as them knowing us.
Those are great.
Yeah.
That's great. Danielle?
Well, just to piggyback off what you're saying, what a better way to meet people where they are by asking them what they want and then meeting that, right? That's the answers to the test. We don't have to figure it out, sitting around in a room and brainstorm. They told us what we wanted or what they wanted or what we wanted, and then you deliver on that. So I think that's a really good way to approach people. We kind of do the same thing on the process side, right? We're like, what works, what doesn't? Tell us where the value prop is and how can we meet that. So when we are partnering with another firm, it isn't really their way, our way, it's best way.
Sure.
Show us how you do it, we'll show you how we do it, and then we'll figure out how we can either hybrid and put that out through the entire organization, or maybe there is a way that is better than the one we're currently doing or what they're currently doing, and then how do we build the bridge to make sure that everybody knows how to do it correctly and the same way going forward. So I think that's how you build operational excellence, is by continuing to evolve and grow on what you're currently doing, and not change for change's sake, but change for efficiency's sake and for, capacity and time and for and value for the client.
One of the things that I see that really matters to firms when they're coming over, we spend all this time talking about AI and cybersecurity and these things that we're really excited about and have spent a ton of time on. But oftentimes firms aren't even thinking that much about it. They should be, and we're encouraging that. But what they're thinking about when they transition is the nuts and bolts of things. It's, how are my workflows going to change? Can I bring over my CRM? Can I use my aggregator? What trading system do you guys have, or can I use that trading system? And even though we always are striving for best in class, it doesn't always necessarily mean best for that person. So I had a great learning lesson on this when this Christmas I gave my father-in-law a new coffee pot. Real fancy, nice coffee pot to replace the 38-year-old coffee pot that he had. Now, plastic coffee pot that tasted like plastic because it's 38 years old. And I thought this was a fantastic gift because, well, it's not old and it's new, and it's got all these fancy gadgets and it's really fun. And he hated it. He thought it was the worst thing ever, even though it was objectively a better coffee pot. But what I failed to realize in that was that it wasn't about being new or being better. It's about what I'm familiar with and what I know how to use. And we see that with these tech stacks all the time. Even though you might have a quote unquote better one, it may have more gadgets and features and may have the latest AI embedded in it, and it may be agentic and all these wonderful things. It's not the workflow that the staff and the advisor are used to using. And so I think one of the things that your team has done incredibly well in being visionaries on, Alec, is being able to be platform agnostic, being able to take all these disparate data sources. And that's one of the biggest challenges that our industry faces, right? Is that you have so many different options. There's so many wealth tech solutions, and a lot of them are great. They're different, but great. And when you're bringing these different partner firms together, everyone's doing different things, and it makes it really challenging, right? From a data management standpoint, from a workflow standpoint, all those things. And so for you guys to have built out these data lakes that they can then ingest that data, normalize it, and then actually present a usable product for the advisor, that's massive, because at the end of the day, when we're partnering with people, we're aligned, right? And so our goal is to minimize as much business disruption as possible. So when someone comes over, the conversation is not, hey, well, you're with us now, so you got to get rid of everything that you're doing and learn all these new things. It's, how do we continue to grow your practice? How do we help you grow? And then give you better solutions for your current workflows. And so that's been super exciting and really fun to see.
I think it is a full spectrum too, right? We had dinner last night with a group that came in town, and the conversation as we were intaking some of the information was, I'm not going to send an email and I'm not going to text. And so we're like, well, how do you want to send the data? And he's like, well, I'm going to write it on a piece of paper, and then I'm going to snap a picture, and then, or I'm going to mail stuff to you. So it's like the coffee maker, it's 30 something years old. This is very old school, and the modality of how to use technology, we're able to adjust and to meet, what that person's wanting to use, while still having the data integrity and the systems to operate things. And I think that's the really neat thing about technology right now. These data lakes, I didn't even know what that was, last week. And so, when you think about like, where does all this repository of information sit? That's the piece that I think your team has done a phenomenal job to gather all the information and build the APIs and build the connectors so that you can just talk and get information out, or type or write. But I think that's the future. And the more that we get comfortable using that information, it's going to make our advisory teams a lot more efficient. So it's pretty amazing. I think it is the time of the innovators. And we're going to see the companies that are willing to push the outer limit as far as how to use technology appropriately. They're going to win the game every time. It's going to be very hard to be competitive. in this world that we live in if you're not doing this.
We've covered a lot today, guys, and I know that we do this often throughout the weeks and months as we integrate more partners into the Larson ecosystem. But if you had to simplify it from your respective disciplines, why does this work here? Why do partnerships work at Larson?
You want to take that one first? You had to go last time. So I can't steal your answers.
Why does this work? Yeah, I think it's because, I mean, we've said it time and time again, but we seek to understand and we truly live out our values, going back to those. And by instilling our values in the conversations we have good outcomes. When we're living those out, the goal-oriented servant leader warrior spirit, we are trying to seek understanding. We are trying to see what information we can learn from one another and fight for one another and ultimately achieve more.
There's a vulnerability in opening your books, right? And opening your people and opening your business. And I think we understand that and then we mirror that, right? We're being vulnerable as well. We're telling you who we are. We're also telling you who we're not. And so I do think in being honest and open and having that dialogue and that transparency and really diving into like that vulnerability, I do think that is what makes the partnerships work really well or identify very quickly what won't work.
I think also it's truly listening and understanding what the people are looking for, because everybody has a different thing that they're looking for. And you have to listen to them and understand them, because what might be right for Sam might not be right for me, right? And you have to adjust to the people individually. And I think that's really important to understand, going back to that whole, our values of goal-oriented servant leader and being a warrior spirit. Well, all of that is about listening and caring for the people that are coming in.
Mm-hmm. Paul?
I think integrity is what lands on me as far as what allows partnerships to work. And in integrity, if you think about just the definition of the word, it's doing the right things at all times, even when nobody's looking. And out of that, you treat people the way that you want to be treated. And I think if you live life with that approach and you're willing to be a person of integrity, you're naturally going to find and attract other people who also value that. And so the partner, or you're going to push people away who don't value that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like a magnet, you know, and if it's attracting to the right person who also values that, it's going to be a great partnership. Mm-hmm. But it will also really, really dramatically push people away that just want to cheat and do things that are in their best interest. Yeah. And I just don't think that those are the type of people that are designed to be partners. Mm-hmm. Those are lone wolves, and we're not. Mm-hmm. We're a wolf pack. And we work together and we serve together and we are going on mission together. And so that's for me, I think what makes it work is its integrity.
Yeah, it's that common mission. You know, we are not an organization that is pedigreed, that's Ivy Leagued, that is highly, highly credentialed. You're not going to see alphabet soup behind most people's names. And I've thought about this a lot because we've done some incredible things as an organization. And how can that be, right? How can you outpace other groups that have all of these things? They've got the credentials, they've got these, massive resumes. And it comes down to that common goal, that common mission. When you have all the people aligned in your organization towards that end goal, you get some incredible results because the expectations are set and you're all pulling towards something bigger than just yourself. And so you can't be that lone wolf. That's where it doesn't work. Because if you're out on your own and you're not a part of this common mission, then things just break. They just don't, there's not alignment, and we have to be aligned. That's why this works, is because we've got alignment towards that common mission. And we're builders. So I'm super excited to get to build with more firms.
Well, they always say strength in numbers, right?
You know, it's funny, we just had Winter Olympics, and the Miracle movie always comes up, especially this year when the U.S. took the men's and women's hockey. And, I don't know a lot about sports, but what I do know is that team that won the Olympics years ago, they weren't the best players individually. I mean, most of them were not that at all. But they had a common purpose to beat all the other countries, and they believed in it, and their coach helped direct them collectively, and they played well as a team together. And I think you're right, Sam. That is what binds us together, regardless of the pedigree or the designations. I mean, we've got people from all walks of life, but the one thing that's common is the why. And we are all rowing together, and we're all aimed at that direction, and it's just makes it really fun, and it attracts a whole lot of other people that want to be part of that. Everybody wants to be part of something bigger than themselves, and this is a place that really breeds that kind of an atmosphere.
So what would you guys say to somebody that's on the fence right now if they're considering, as we said at the very beginning, record numbers for M&A in 2025, coming off a year previous in 2024 with record numbers, coming off a previous year in 2023 with record numbers. The numbers aren't slowing down. First quarter data's in. We're still on pace for another record. So if somebody is on the fence, if they're considering, what would be one thing that you would say if we were to just kind of do the millennial TLDR? If we were to summarize everything, that's too long, didn't read.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is this? What is TLDR?
So if we were to summarize everything, what would be the one thing that you would want to say to somebody that's on the fence?
I wouldn't say anything. I would listen, and I would say, put down the 5 things that are most important to you and listen back on what we said and see if they align. I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't talk them in or out of it. Just kind of wait patiently, be still, and see what comes.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you don't know yourself, then you're at this point.
Yes.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be. And so, effectively, if you know yourself, you already know the decision, and this situation wouldn't even exist.
Mm-hmm. I think that our clients that came in yesterday was crucial, right? Because when I said, I care about your people, did you see their eyes light up when I said that?
It was a softening.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like, we manage, we care about your people, we want them to be treated, don't want them to be lost. Talked about just simple things about when do I get paid, when are my benefits, things like that. Their eyes perked up and they just became very soft and opening after we said that.
Yeah.
I would just ask them, do you want to build or do you want to be bought? Mm-hmm. And depending on how that question is answered, that tells us all that we need to know if is this going to be a good partnership or not.
For me, whether it's somebody that's looking to partner or I'm just curious generally about all people, what is your why? Yeah. And if we can't understand what your why is, the what doesn't matter. Yeah. And you got to get that straight, because if you start creating solutions around what should we do or when should we go, if you haven't identified why are you even going to begin with, it's just not going to last. And so I want to understand that. Like, what is your compelling why? Why do you get out of bed? Why are we talking right now? Why are you living life? Like, what? That's for me most important. And then to Danielle's point, I think aligning the why with the things that you're hearing at this table, and then figuring out, all right, I can subscribe to that. We are aligned in our whys, so now we can talk about the what. And we're ready. When that time is right, we're ready to talk about it.
Yeah, it's just like with our clients, we do financial plans, and we do those for a reason, right? Because we need to know the target, and we need to know where they're going and why they're going there. And you hearken back to this earlier. You said oftentimes, just like a physician is the worst patient, oftentimes advisors aren't great at taking their own advice. And so they do all this planning for their clients all the time, and they don't have any plan or target for their business. And so I think that's exactly it, is why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve? And based on that, we can fill in the rest of the details.
This may be a slight variant of what we just talked about. But as we look ahead, what are we most excited about building? 2030 to 20, that roadmap to 2030, what are we most excited about building?
I would tell you that over the 20 years of existence as a company, the thing that has been a common thread through the whole thing is we want to grow people. And that is a crucial component to this. And it's been a bumpy ride. You know, we had to learn a lot of hard lessons. Like there were years where we didn't really have any sort of a net promoter score or an employee satisfaction score. We didn't even know what that was. So you're relying on like a glass door or something like this to figure out, are you doing what's right for your people? And those are really poor metrics to use. So I would tell you that while the growing people goal hasn't changed, like we want to do more of that, but we also want to do it better. And that's the piece that I think the group here and much broader with the other 500 people that are part of this organization, we are committed to continuing to learn and to do things better. And so while we are aiming for a goal by 2030 to see 100,000 families flourishing, and we have these metrics that we're measuring, whether it's are people actually flourishing and how do we define flourishing? Where is their pay structure? How could they compare that to somewhere else? Well, those are really important things. We've got to measure that. But I do think that there is a very direct line, over the next 5 years for us to accomplish mission in that respect alone. But it is all around people. Like the why at Larson is people. That is our why. And then it's, what do you do? Well, we help people with their finances. But it's the people that we're interested in, not just the checkbooks.
That was perfect. What we want to do is grow people, and we want to do that with the right partners. And that's why we have this consortium, this group, is to make sure that the right teams are the ones that align with us on that mission. So I want to thank everybody for getting together here. I want to thank everybody for their time and attention that has watched this. If you made it this far, man, come on, call me. But man, I want to thank all of you for getting together here and looking forward to going and accomplishing the goal that you just set. So thank you very much.